seeing a ghost of an important structure here that, potentially people haven't seen with their eyes for thousands of years.
This is right where the GPR was showing that signal, isn't it?
Bang on. Absolutely bang on.
For thousands of years, the great stone circle of Stonehenge has long been known as a sacred temple, a sophisticated calendar built to honor the sun. But now, scientists analyzing new data have discovered a hidden pattern buried in the landscape, a vast and terrifying blueprint revealing that the stone circle was never the main structure at all, but merely the center of a cosmic machine larger and more meticulously calculated than anyone had ever imagined. What if Stonehenge wasn't a temple to the sun, but the heart of a system designed for a much darker purpose? What was this colossal pattern really for? And why does the truth behind it seem so much worse than we ever thought? A stone of 1,000 kilometers. In the very heart of Stonehenge, positioned with deliberate ceremonial importance, lies a 6-ton slab of red-hued sandstone known as the altar stone. For more than a century, the established scientific narrative held that this monolithic stone, much like the smaller bluestones that form the inner horseshoe, was hewn from the Preseli Hills in Wales and transported over 250 kilometers to its final resting place. This journey alone was considered one of the greatest achievements of the Neolithic world, a feat of logistics and raw manpower that pushed the perceived limits of prehistoric societies. The idea of hundreds of individuals working in concert to drag, raft, and roll this immense weight across rivers, forests, and hills was a story that solidified our image of Stonehenge as a project of profound regional significance, a testament to the powerful beliefs of a localized, albeit highly organized culture. This entire understanding, accepted as archaeological fact for generations, has now been proven definitively wrong. A groundbreaking geochemical analysis, completed in 2024, has completely dismantled this long-held theory, revealing a truth far more complex and staggering than previously imagined. The science behind this revelation is both elegant and absolute. Researchers employed a technique known as geochemical fingerprinting, a process that reads the unique chemical signature locked deep inside a stone's mineral structure. A signature as distinct and unrepeatable as an organism's DNA. This elemental profile is a direct product of the specific geological conditions under which the rock was formed millions of years ago. When the altar stone's signature was compared against a comprehensive geological database of rock formations across Britain, the results were conclusive. It did not match any quarry in Wales. It did not match any known source in the surrounding regions. Instead, after a meticulous process of elimination, the data pointed to a single, shocking origin. A specific geological formation in the far northeast of Scotland, over 750 kilometers, or nearly 470 miles, away. This discovery does not merely adjust the map. It redraws the boundaries of the Neolithic world and forces us to confront the true, almost incomprehensible scale of the Stonehenge project. The implications of this single fact are profound. A 750-kilometer journey in the 3rd millennium BCE, without the wheel, without roads as we know them, and without large draft animals, was not simply a difficult task. It was a monumental, multi-generational undertaking. This was not a simple act of quarrying and transport. It was an epic procession that would have required crossing the rugged, unforgiving spine of ancient Britain, navigating treacherous rivers and coastal waters, and traversing lands likely controlled by numerous different tribes, each with its own customs and potential for hostility. To achieve this demanded a level of sophisticated organization and intertribal communication previously thought impossible for this period. It implies the existence of long-distance alliances, shared ideologies powerful enough to unite disparate peoples across hundreds of miles, and a level of centralized planning and authority that rivals that of later, more complex civilizations. The old image of isolated farming communities coming together for a common project is no longer tenable. This was the work of a highly integrated island-wide network. This shifts the fundamental question from how they moved the stone to why they were so utterly compelled to. The sheer scale of the effort suggests the altar stone was not merely a convenient building material. A society does not expend this level of energy and resources for a simple block of sandstone. This journey transforms the altar stone into something far more significant. A sacred relic, a holy object believed to possess such immense power or symbolic meaning that any obstacle, any distance, was deemed acceptable to overcome. The project was not one of choice, but of necessity, driven by a belief system so powerful and so demanding that it could command the labor and faith of people across an entire landmass. The true scale of Stonehenge was never just about the physical size of its stones, but about the vast geographical and social network it commanded. But if our understanding of a single stone was so profoundly limited, it forces us to ask a far more unsettling question. If we were wrong about the reach of its builders, what else are we wrong about? If the very map of their world has been so drastically expanded, what if our understanding of the monument itself is similarly constrained? What happens when we learn that the iconic stone circle, the very image that defines Stonehenge in the global imagination, is not the main event at all? What if it is merely the focal point of a far larger hidden architecture, a structure so vast it has remained buried and invisible in the landscape, waiting for millennia to reveal the true, terrifying scale of this ancient cosmic machine? The underworld's frontier. The answer to that question lies not within the circle of stones, but in the seemingly empty fields that stretch for miles around it, a landscape long considered secondary to the main monument. For decades, archaeologists and geophysicists studying the area around Durrington Walls, the vast settlement where the builders of Stonehenge lived and feasted, had noted a series of strange, recurring anomalies in their ground-penetrating radar surveys. These were large, regularly spaced interruptions in the subsoil, forming a massive arc. For a long time, the prevailing theory was that these were natural geological features, perhaps sinkholes or remnants of ancient Ice Age ponds, coincidental quirks of the landscape that had no human connection. This assumption allowed the focus to remain squarely on the stones themselves, but that comfortable explanation has now been utterly demolished. Recent targeted excavations, combined with advanced remote sensing technology, have confirmed a truth so astonishing that it redefines the entire concept of a prehistoric monument. These were not natural formations. They are, in fact, a circuit of enormous, systematically excavated pits, each one up to 10 meters wide and 5 meters deep, dug by human hands into the solid chalk bedrock. Arranged in a colossal circle more than 2 kilometers in diameter, they constitute the largest prehistoric structure ever discovered in Britain, dwarfing Stonehenge itself. This immense circle of shafts is not a random placement. Its geometry is deliberate and precise, forming a near-perfect circle centered on the Durrington Walls henge. The first logical impulse might be to interpret this as a form of defense, a prehistoric palisade or moat designed to protect the settlement. Yet, the archaeological evidence refutes this simple explanation. The pits are too wide, too far apart, and lack the associated ramparts or walls typical of defensive earthworks. Their purpose was not military. Instead, a powerful and unsettling consensus has emerged among leading archaeologists. This was a sacred boundary. It was a monumental line drawn into the earth, a physical manifestation of a conceptual divide between the world of the living, centered at Durrington Walls, and another realm entirely. This was a frontier separating the profane from the sacred, the settlement from the ceremonial landscape, or, as some researchers now theorize, a tangible border separating the world of the living from a perceived underworld. The sheer scale of the labor involved is almost impossible for the modern mind to fully comprehend. To excavate millions of tons of chalk using nothing more than antler picks, wooden shovels, and stone tools represents a generational investment of time and energy that borders on obsession. This discovery fundamentally shifts our understanding of the people who built Stonehenge. They were not simply focused on building a temple to the heavens, they were equally, if not more, preoccupied with defining and fortifying a boundary on Earth. A society does not expend this level of generational effort simply to mark territory. It does so out of a profound and overwhelming necessity, driven by a belief system so powerful it demands the landscape itself be physically reshaped to conform to its cosmic rules. The existence of this boundary suggests a worldview built on a stark and powerful duality, a constant awareness of a proximity to another, unseen world that was so real and so potent, it needed to be cordoned off on a superhuman scale. The staggering implications of this boundary force a disturbing shift in perspective. The question is no longer what they were worshipping inside their sacred landscape, but what they were so terrified of that it needed to be contained. Was this colossal circle of pits a shield to keep a hostile, chaotic world out? Or was it something far more sinister, a cage to keep a powerful, unseen entity in? And what celestial laws, what cosmic rhythm, dictated the rules of this terrifying frontier? The 18.6-year cycle. The cosmic rhythm that dictated the rules of this terrifying frontier was not the one we have always believed it to be. For centuries, our understanding of Stonehenge's celestial connection has been anchored in the comforting and predictable journey of the sun. The famous alignment with the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset is a piece of knowledge that feels safe, a beautiful and harmonious union between ancient people and the life-giving cycles of nature. This solar clock is logical and practical, a framework for planting, harvesting, and seasonal festivals. It speaks of a society in tune with the reliable annual pulse of the Earth, a worldview centered on light, warmth, and the predictable patterns that govern survival. But beyond the main circle lies a subtle, yet profound geometric anomaly that reveals a second, far more complex and unsettling layer of astronomical knowledge. 4 stones, known as the station stones, stand at the periphery, forming a perfect, deliberate rectangle. For years, the precise purpose of this formation remained an enigma, but it is now clear its alignments were not designed to track the simple and familiar path of the sun. Their purpose was to chart the movements of the moon. However, this was not a simple observation of the moon's monthly phases. The station stones were positioned to pinpoint the key moments of a much rarer, longer, and more mysterious celestial event, a phenomenon known as a major lunar standstill. This is not an event that can be observed easily. It is the culmination of a slow, 18.5-year-long cycle, during which the rising and setting positions of the moon on the horizon swing back and forth like a pendulum. The major lunar standstill is the moment when that pendulum reaches its widest and most extreme points, when the moon rises and sets at its northernmost and southernmost limits. To the naked eye, it appears as though the moon stands still at these extreme points for a short period before its long journey back begins. This is a fundamentally different kind of astronomy. It is long-term, abstract, and requires a level of patience and record-keeping that is difficult to fathom. In a remarkable coincidence that brings this ancient mystery into the present day, a major lunar standstill is occurring right now, a period lasting from early 2024 through the middle of 2025, allowing modern researchers to witness the very alignments the builders of Stonehenge engineered their monument to capture. The implications of this lunar alignment are profound, as it shifts the focus of Stonehenge from the practical to the deeply abstract, from the light into the domain of darkness. No single individual in the Neolithic, with its shorter life expectancies, could have independently discovered or tracked this 18.6-year cycle. Its observation and prediction would have required a coordinated, multi-generational effort, with knowledge meticulously recorded and passed down from one generation of observers to the next. This reveals a society possessing a form of long-term, institutionalized science, a priesthood or intellectual elite dedicated to decoding the more obscure and lengthy rhythms of the cosmos. The sun provides a calendar for life, but the moon, in this context, governs a different realm. It represents the night, mystery, and cosmic cycles that operate on a timescale far beyond that of a single human life. Their obsession with this specific lengthy cycle suggests their cosmology was not simply about celebrating the seasons, but about tracking a far more enigmatic and perhaps ominous celestial clock. The meticulous observation of the sun has a clear practical purpose that grounds a society in the tangible realities of agriculture and survival. But to dedicate generations of effort to tracking a lunar cycle that unfolds over nearly 2 decades suggests a purpose that is not practical, but deeply and perhaps disturbingly ritualistic. What kind of society is forged, not by the reliable warmth of the sun, but by an obsession with a long, dark, and incomprehensible cycle in the night sky? The social machine. The nature of the society forged by this dark and lengthy cosmic cycle becomes terrifyingly clear when the evidence is finally assembled. The portrait that emerges is not one of pastoral harmony, but of a culture operating within a rigid and all-encompassing framework. To live in this world was to exist inside a system of immense scale and relentless demand. The daily reality for these people was framed by the colossal ring of pits, a perpetual psychological presence and a constant physical reminder of the boundary between their known world and a terrifying, unseen other. This was not a simple fence. It was a cognitive border carved into the earth, reinforcing a specific worldview with every sunrise and sunset. At the very center of their spiritual landscape stood the altar stone, a permanent testament not just to their beliefs, but to the system's reach and power. It was a silent, daily reminder that the authority governing their lives could command a journey to the ends of the known world, a symbol of an inescapable, centralized will that could unite or compel thousands of individuals across hundreds of miles. And the rhythm of their most sacred duties was dictated not by the simple agricultural calendar of the sun, but by the abstract and mysterious 18.6-year lunar clock, a celestial cycle whose meaning and interpretation were held exclusively by a select few. A society cannot sustain these 3 monumental efforts: the boundary, the relic, and the celestial clock, simultaneously through simple, voluntary cooperation. The logistics are too complex, the timescale too long, the labor too immense. Independent communities, acting on shared faith alone, could not have coordinated the multi-generational journey from Scotland, while simultaneously excavating and maintaining a 2-kilometer sacred frontier, all while adhering to a ritual calendar based on a 19-year astronomical cycle. Such an achievement requires something far more structured and powerful. It requires a mechanism of absolute control. This was not a society of free farmers who occasionally gathered to work on a temple. This was a highly integrated and ruthlessly efficient social machine, an organism where the individual was subordinate to the grand multi-generational project, and where every aspect of life, from labor to belief, was likely mandated to serve the system's continuation. To operate this machine, a formidable structure of command and compliance must have been in place. Sustaining a project of this magnitude for centuries requires a powerful central authority capable of mobilizing immense labor forces, managing resources on a national scale, and enforcing a unified ideological conformity. The sheer amount of physical work, the millions of hours spent digging with primitive tools or hauling stones across a continent, suggests a system where labor was not a choice. The common faith that inspired the project was likely the very tool used to enforce its completion. Compliance was achieved not just through belief, but through a structure that made dissent or deviation from the collective task unthinkable. The resulting social hierarchy would have been stark and unforgiving, a pyramid with the vast majority of the population at the base providing the physical energy, while a small, powerful elite at the apex directed the entire operation according to their exclusive cosmic knowledge. This level of unified effort, sustained over centuries, transcends the idea of willing cooperation. It approaches a form of ideological servitude. A society that can mobilize resources on this scale, dedicating the lives of its people to a project whose ultimate meaning is understood by only a few, is a society held together by more than just shared belief. It is held together by fear. Fear of the forces on the other side of the great boundary, and fear of the authority that interpreted the will of the heavens. But who, exactly, wielded this immense power? Who were the silent, unseen architects behind this colossal and demanding cosmic machine? The priest astronomers. The medieval imagination, confronted with an engineering marvel that seemed to defy the limits of human capability, invented a wizard, Merlin, to explain the impossible. This legend offered a simple, magical solution to a problem of incomprehensible scale, attributing the creation of Stonehenge to supernatural forces because the alternative, a purely human effort, seemed too vast to be believable. But the truth, as the emerging evidence now suggests, is far more astounding and infinitely more chilling than any tale of sorcery. The immense cosmic machine encompassing the entire landscape was not built by a mythical wizard. It was designed, engineered, and ruthlessly directed by a very real, and likely very small, intellectual elite. It was the work of a class of priest astronomers, the guardians of a sacred and complex knowledge so far beyond the grasp of the general populace that it would have appeared as magic. These were not kings who ruled by force of arms, but a silent authority who ruled by force of intellect. This elite class was the living engine of the social machine. Their power did not derive from swords or crowns, but from their unique and exclusive ability to interpret the heavens. They were the ones who possessed the generational knowledge required to track and predict the 18.6-year cycle of the major lunar standstill, transforming an obscure celestial event into a cornerstone of ritual and social order. They were the ones who understood, and perhaps even created, the cosmological necessity for the 2-kilometer boundary at Durrington Walls, defining the sacred and profane for everyone else. And it was their authority that would have sanctioned and directed the epic, nation-spanning quest to retrieve the altar stone from the distant lands of Scotland, imbuing the object with its sacred power through their own divine interpretation. Their knowledge was their scepter. By controlling the calendar, they controlled the planting and the harvest. By controlling the rituals, they controlled the spiritual life of every individual. By controlling the understanding of the cosmos, they controlled reality itself. They were, in effect, the real-life Merlins. But their power was not magical. It was intellectual, and therefore far more absolute. To the common person digging in the chalk pits or hauling on the ropes, the pronouncements of these priest astronomers would have been indistinguishable from the will of the gods. An order to labor for years on a project whose purpose was tied to a 19-year lunar cycle would not have been a request to be debated, but a divine command to be obeyed without question. This intellectual elite formed the apex of the social pyramid, the architects and engineers of the cosmic system, the ones who wrote the complex celestial code that every other person in their society was forced to live by. Their control was total, a form of intellectual totalitarianism where knowledge was hoarded, mystified, and used as the ultimate tool of social engineering. And yet, for all their immense landscape-altering power, this ruling class is archaeologically invisible. We have found evidence of their commands everywhere, in the millions of tons of earth and stone they moved, and in the precise astronomical alignments they calculated. But of them, we have found almost nothing. There are no grand palaces, no lavish tombs filled with the markers of their status, no written edicts bearing their names. They are a ghost class, a faceless authority known only by the sheer, overwhelming scale of the system they created and the society they controlled. This very invisibility makes their power seem even more profound, more absolute. Now we understand the nature of their authority. We have found their monumental works, the stones, the pits, the silent evidence of their total control. But we are still left with the final terrifying question. What was this colossal machine, this entire system of belief and labor, actually for? What was the ultimate purpose of the cosmic order they designed, and so ruthlessly imposed upon thousands of an unknowing populace? Now, as the pieces fit together, the hidden pattern reveals itself not as a temple, but as a cosmic blueprint imposed upon society. The Durrington pits were the bars of a perceptual cage, the altar stone, a symbol of absolute power. The answer is, yes, the effort was worse than we thought. Worse not for the physical toil, but for the spiritual bondage. Stonehenge was not a monument of voluntary faith. It is the evidence of a society imprisoned within a cruel cosmic cage, and the very people who built it were also its first prisoners.